Welcome to From the Mezzanine, a motion picture podcast. We are two guys from the Midwest who have a passion for all things film and TV. We are not professional reviewers. We do not trade opinions for special access from movie studios, and our reviews are not on behalf of any organization or publication. Each week, we put our own money on the line to tell you what is the best and worst in theaters, on streaming services, and on video on demand. We are not here to beg for your donations or sell you men's razors and meal kits. From this point forward, we're talking all things movie and TV. Tonight, we've got some movie news, followed by what we've been watching in theaters and streaming. Next, we'll talk a few non-movie things. And for our big segment this week, we've got something special we're calling the Best Korea Super Special. And finally, we'll bring it home with what's coming out next week and our invitation to Zen segment.
This presentation contains some copyrighted materials that have been used under the fair use provisions of U.S. copyright law. Further use, duplication, or distribution is prohibited. And welcome everybody to From the Mezzanine. I'm Chuck. This is my buddy Matt. How you doing? I'm doing pretty good. How was your week?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I saw a lot of good things this week, and I'm excited to get into our first ever special segment. So
really looking forward to this. Especially, I don't know, my formation as a film snob has a lot to do with the film of South Korea. And
for sure.
But what were you? Well, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself here. We're getting into movie news first. There actually were quite a few things that happened this week. Some we thought were interesting that turned out not to be, and some things that actually kind of, are setting the stage for some exciting stuff to come out in the future. And one of the companies to really just roll out like a mountain of content was our friends at Disney. They had Disney Plus Day. What exactly did you get out of all that they had to offer?
Yeah, so for me personally, my big takeaway was a lot of good Marvel news. They showed some footage from Moon Knight. They showed some footage from She-Hulk. Interestingly enough, it looks like they're going like the makeup route with her. They're not going to do like a CGI thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because my mileage with Banner Hulk, or not Banner Hulk, Ruffalo Hulk, it kind of got old after a while just seeing this, massive pixels walking around.
Yeah, with a vaguely Mark Ruffalo face, like attached to it. But yeah, so those were cool. And then there was also, well, if you're a Star Wars fan, you were kind of like shit out of luck because the Star Wars stuff was really lame. It was like there was nothing about Boba Fett, and I don't understand why they chose to like release that Boba Fett trailer last week and then have nothing about Boba Fett at Disney Plus Day. It doesn't really make sense to me. The Obi-Wan Kenobi show, it was literally just like concept art.
And
do you see that?
Yeah, they're just hyping this Vader fight, which I don't know how I feel about that. Because I don't know, but that's just Star Wars residual nerdness that I'm still hanging on to. Because it was always my impression that they never saw each other again until A New Hope happened. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah, they're kind of getting into that territory where like certain lines are going to start not making sense in like the older movies and stuff like that, because they're just going back and like changing things. Like when they did like Rogue One, isn't there like that line in like A New Hope where they talk about like the guys who stole the Death Star plans? And it definitely wasn't the people from Rogue One.
It definitely wasn't. Exactly. Yeah. And you can live with that because the idea might be that, well, the actual story's, is top secret. So they lied about how they got it so as to not. But that doesn't really hold water when you think about what that movie's about. So whatever. You just kind of have to just shrug your shoulders and say, well, they're doing it.
Yeah. And then, that stuff was kind of lame. my other big takeaway was the X-Men animated
That
series thing.
I love that they're doing that because it's
Yeah.
exact opposite of what they do with everything else. They're because of people who don't know, the 97 or like I forget, yeah, it started before 97, didn't it?
I
Or
think so. I
yeah,
think that might have been when it ended.
ended. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
when they canceled it. And like that show was so cool. Like one of the first books I ever bought at a book fair was a novelization of the pilot of the of the
Oh.
animated series. So I did I know it because I read it, and it was just like a picture book, comic book kind of a thing. But I have
Mhm.
a deep affection for that show, that soundtrack, that art style, that Jim Lee art that is just unmistakable and is uniquely him. So
Yeah.
glad that they're just kind of saying, well, let's give the fuckers what they want. And they're just dipping it into that well that is still pretty deep. And we're going to have modern comic book sensibilities being piped through 90s nostalgia as it literally was in the 90s. And I find that fascinating that they're choosing to do that.
Yeah, and it's like a from what they said, it's a continuation of the show. It's not like a reboot. It's not like a
Exactly.
sequel. It's like literally picking up where the last episode left off.
And if they do it
So
right, the voice actors are going to have to imitate the voice actors from that
yeah,
original
yeah,
show. Oh, they were, especially the Gambit guy. He was so bad, but I love
yeah,
it. I love it because of how bad it was. But
yeah,
yeah, the other thing, like I guess I hadn't heard this at all, but Idris Elba it confirmed that we're gonna have a movie to cap off the Luther series that he was so famous for before he became Hollywood leading man Idris Elba.
yeah, yeah. So he posted a picture on Instagram, basically that just showed like um, I think it was just like the clapboard for their first day of filming, and it's really cool in my opinion when like people like him, like megastars, can go back to like the stuff basically that gave them their like breakout role. Because I guess he was Stringer Bell first, I think technically.
Technically,
um
but
but
that was a character ensemble part.
yeah, but yeah, he's been playing Luther now. For that show started in 2010, so he's been playing Luther on and off for like what'll be going on 12 years.
That's really cool.
So yeah,
No,
it's really really cool that he can do that because that show's amazing, and it's probably his best role or my favorite of his roles, and it's consistent like all the way through. I don't know if you're familiar with
oh
Luther
yeah,
the show. Yeah,
I watched it with my parents, quite a bit when I lived with them for a short while, and no, they love Luther. So like
yeah,
I was happy to hear that for them because that was one of their shows for a really long time.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be cool, but um
Yeah,
real
moving on.
quick.
Oh, you have another something else to add. Okay.
Yeah, one more thing I wanted to add to that Disney Plus Day thing.
I
Did you hear
apologize.
about the random Hulu announcement
No?
about the Predator movie?
Oh, that? Yeah.
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
hear about that. Did you hear that it's a literal one-to-one ripoff of a fan fiction?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I heard.
Really?
I just heard the bitching and moaning and rending of garments because people were like, this has already been done. You're just stealing someone else's idea and work.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I didn't
because
hear that, but it sounded cool to me because
mm-hmm.
I mean, if people don't know, it's basically a Predator movie set 300 years ago with like a bunch of Native Americans, and one of them has to like basically go against the Predator,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be done by oh, what's his name, the 10 Cloverfield Lane guy, um,
What is
Trachtenberg, that's his name,
okay.
Dan Trachtenberg, that's it.
Okay.
So yeah, he did 10 Cloverfield Lane, and I think he did a bunch of like TV stuff too. But um, yeah, it sounds interesting. I didn't know what was the fan thing. Was it like a fan like novel or comic or what?
I guess I think it might have been a comic because like there's art, showing it, but the what they did was like an African female warrior. That
Okay.
was the angle they went with it. So it's not a literal one-to-one. They're just being, trite and bitchy. Everybody can, think of a good idea. And a good idea is taking a more primitive man and pitting them against the technologically advanced predator. That works. It's a great idea. And and everyone and every kind of, like, even Spawn had a series where it was about a medieval Spawn. And I'm sure that there's been Predator stories that did just that, especially in the comics, like actual sanctioned, property that is owned. So they probably could have just lift from their own, like, intellectual property to get this. Yeah. So yeah, they're all of those people bitching on the internet can just, go pound sand, because they're doing it. Just be happy that they're doing it. Fan fiction is fan fiction. No one paid you to make that. You own nothing. And Dan Trachtenberg. Oh, now I really am excited about this, because I didn't realize this. He did the Portal No Escape short film.
Okay. Yeah.
So that might have been, yeah. And also, he was the guy that he directs the premiere episodes of The Boys. So a capable guy.
Yeah, and definitely.
And I guess The Lost Symbol is like his latest, where he was an executive producer and a director. So yeah, I haven't thought about this guy in years, but now I'm interested in what he's putting out. And I love The Predator. It's one of the few movies that I've, like, bought digitally just so I can have it everywhere that I go.
Yeah.
And yeah. I thought it was neat, but I also, like, was just kind of laughing at all the consternation going on online over it. It's like, chill out, guys.
Yeah.
There's more important things in the world.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it is, especially because I hope the fact that it's on Hulu doesn't mean that it sucks, because like sometimes that can be a warning sign that something, they don't have a lot of faith in something, like direct to streaming services.
It's because it's a Fox property, basically. Disney doesn't want to put that on. They're not going to platform that with all the AAA shit. They're like, this is B movie. This is Schwarzenegger stuff.
Yeah.
Even though Schwarzenegger's not going to have anything to do with this. But no, I'm down for that. Down like a clown. Down like a clown. Sure. But you also finally, you jumped, you bit, you went to the Eternals. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so I went to a couple movies in theaters this week. Eternals was one of them, and I guess I would kind of describe it as like a noble failure. Would be my sort of one sentence review, but it's I don't think it's like nearly as different as people seem to think it is. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, this is different for a Marvel movie. And it's really not. It follows the same formula. It just has like more shots of like landscapes and stuff.
It's strange to me that that's the kind of thing that made people go, ooh, so much, so different and new. It's like you could find this kind of content, on a, like a Netflix nature documentary, and it would be in 4K and look wonderful, but yeah, it's a like, the initial reaction was very visceral, especially from me, but in hindsight and in thinking about it more, it's like, it's clear that they wanted to pay homage to the altar of Kirby, but they buried him a little bit. They teetered under the weight of their own ambition and couldn't pull it off quite as effectively as they can make a paint by numbers movie.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just kind of typical Marvel. And I do think that she did a good job juggling like 10 main characters. Yeah. Some were more interesting than others. Like, I really liked Druig, the guy who can like control people with his mind, because they actually were like asking some pretty interesting questions with his character, as far as like if he should be sort of bending like humans to his will when he sees them like participating in like war and like genocide and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty interesting. And then there was that scene where they go to like his weird like Amazon city. I don't know. Did you get that far in the movie?
I caught glimpses of that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. They like, he has like this city in the Amazon where he's like mind controlling all the residents of, and then the deviants come to attack it. and he's basically forcing all of the residents of the city to like stay and fight the deviants, but they have like no chance, so they're all just like
Yeah, that's
dying.
right. That's right.
So
Yeah. No,
it's
that's true. Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of cool, but yeah, and then but the deviants themselves I thought were kind of dumb. Like it
They
was
sucked, especially when you
yeah.
know what they were supposed to be, because they're basically just supposed to be broken, warped versions of the Eternals.
Mhm.
You know, like they're monstrous and gross, yeah, but they're also anthropomorphic, or not anthro.
Yeah.
They're people. You know, they're not
Mhm.
just a panther that's made out of eels and tentacles.
Yeah, yeah. They looked like the things from Edge of Tomorrow, that Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, it was like the
yeah.
same design,
Well,
but
and that's kind of what made me like poo poo the special effects, because I'm like they're like, besides the Celestials and those vistas, it all looked like just low rent garbage from video games and movies that I've seen for the last 10 years. As
mhm.
far as the specifically about the deviants.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they were just kind of lame. They didn't need them either because they, I don't want to like go too much into spoilers, but they had a villain for the movie and they didn't need the deviants, and especially that one who like gained sentience and like started talking, and it was like
Yeah,
Bill Sarsgaard. Like it was so weird
yeah. It's like,
because
what
he
is
showed up.
this thing?
Yeah, and then he just like very very anticlimactically is out of the movie, and so that was kind of dumb, but yeah, it was okay, and I think the biggest crime of the movie is that it does nothing to connect itself with any of the other Marvel movies,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like what does this movie even mean, like in the context of like the 25 movies before it, like what is
Yeah.
the point even, because um I don't think they're going to do a sequel, or they haven't confirmed a sequel, and they haven't like I think even what's his name, Kit Harrington has even come out and been like, I don't think there's going to be a Black Knight movie. Like I think he literally said that in an interview. So it's like what was the point of this?
And that's a good question, because the connective tissue to the rest of the universe is barely there. We get that one little end credit scene. Did you stick around for the end credit scene?
Yeah, the one with
Yeah.
Blade's voice.
Yeah, well, yeah, that one, yeah, stay for that one. But the one where Harry Styles shows up and he's Thanos' brother.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
was dumb.
that was it. That was and but then like Bradshaw, raged up for about like 7 hours, about our friend at Fargonauts. His big issue is that, well, now Thanos is a robot. How can he have a brother? He's not a real living thing. He's an eternal himself, essentially, is what this movie revealed. And all that does is bring up more questions.
Yeah,
It's annoying mystery box bullshit, and they're not gonna, and they have no interest in even pursuing it. And at best, a lot of these characters are just going to be used to fill in gaps in other Marvel movies going forward. That's all that I can see them like. We'll see Druig in something. He'll pop up, to interact with somebody, but that's the problem with the whole Phase 4 not having the heavy hitters like Iron Man anymore, and Thor essentially taking a backseat to Natalie Portman's character in Love and Thunder.
hmm
And yeah, and Bradshaw brought up some cool ideas about like the Fantastic Four and such. So yeah, it's like maybe some of these people have a place in those stories, and we could see them pop up there. But yeah, there's not a sequel that they can make unless the sequel to the Eternals is going to be the next Endgame Infinity War that they do at the end of the cycle.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They'll probably just show up in another movie, honestly. Like show up kind of like Captain Marvel did at the end of Avengers Endgame, where she just kind of like comes in and punches Thanos once, and then you like never see her again for the rest of the movie.
Oh god, yeah, I've never seen that one. Yeah, and yeah, and her character just made me mad because it was like, well, where were you? What were you doing? Don't give me this. It's a big galaxy bullshit. This is the most important planet in the galaxy. It's Earth. It's, like, come on, like,
Yeah.
I just didn't buy it. It didn't
Yeah.
work for me. But it's also why, DC never brought Green Lantern into anything either, because the big question becomes, well, where the fuck have you been, bud?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I'm way more excited for Spider-Man next month. So
It's getting so close. Like, these movies
yeah,
sneak up on me. I'm
yeah,
so caught up in the here and now, I'm barely able to think too far ahead.
yeah, for sure.
But what else were you able to see? Because I have to confess, I had a close encounter with a unnamed virus of indeterminate origin, and I stayed away from theaters this week. But you were able to venture out. So what did you see?
Yeah. So the other movie I saw in theaters this week was Belfast, a new Kenneth Branagh movie, and I really really liked that. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I was honestly kind of expecting like a lot of Oscar bait, but it was it's basically the story of his childhood, his age. That's where he grew up, was Belfast, and then the
Mm-hmm.
age kind of lines up with the setting in the 60s, and it kind of takes place in a time when there was Protestants and Catholics were sort of at each other's throats, and that's kind of
Troubles.
the yeah, that's kind of the set dressing for the movie. And what the movie's actually about is it follows this boy named Buddy, and it's just kind of like little vignettes of his childhood. And I'm sure like a lot of these experiences were like ripped directly from Kenneth Branagh's childhood, and I thought it was really good. It was like it did the sentimental thing, but like really really well, where it was very restrained, and there was like points in the movie where they could have gone for like the tearjerker stuff and they didn't,
Yeah.
and they just kind of kept things going and kept things, didn't like hover on any one thing too much to try and like get the tears out of you.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very like mature and very restrained. And the black and white, uh, I mean, you can obviously see in the preview here that the whole movie is in black and white. It kind of gives the movie this sort of dreamlike feel, sort of like another time and another place. And in the movie, actually, they have there's like a recurring segment where the whole family gets together and goes to the actual movie theaters.
Mm-hmm.
They see like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and like I think it's like one of the Planet of the Apes movies. And
Okay.
when they go to the theaters, the only thing that in the entire movie that's in color are the movies they're watching. So
That must be a very cool effect. I really want to see
it
this.
yeah, it is. It's really cool because yeah, they're just showing like he got the rights to all the movies too that they're watching. So he shows like clips from like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and stuff. And so yeah, I really, really liked it. And there is one scene at the end that I want to just mention really quickly. I don't
Yeah.
want to like spoil it, but it's it is kind of the moment in the movie where he does actually go for like the sort of emotional punch. And there's a piece of acting in the very last scene of the movie that's done by Judi Dench that is like one of the best acted scenes I've seen in like recent memory. Like
Right
it's
on.
it's like it's one of those scenes where if like you have like parents or like grandparents that are getting old, you're like, this scene's really going to hit you. And it was really really good and very very like effective, especially after how much of the movie was so like restrained and stuff like I was saying before. But
Yeah. So
yeah,
he pulled his punches, and and then he gets you right in the heart at the end. That.
pretty much.
Yeah. Because Kenneth Branagh is an interesting filmmaker to me. I grew up on all of his Shakespeare movies, and just enjoyed seeing him pop up in any movie. I was like, oh, Kenneth Branagh's here. Like he's a welcome presence for me. If
Mhm.
he's in a movie. But he has just kind of been committed to making Hollywood excess films.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm very intrigued by this movie, and I'm definitely going to check it out since it is like I'm not from Northern. My ancestors were from like County Cork in
Okay.
Ireland. And they were not. I'm a very Catholic, Irish background, but
Okay.
they're still my brothers, up there, even though the British have claimed them forever. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely go seek it out. It's very good.
awesome.
Yeah.
And moving on to streaming. So the Don't Breathe 2, was that like that's just on video on demand? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
you can rent it now. It's like $6. I have you seen the first one at
I
all?
have, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
really liked that. Like it was a good, pretty solid horror movie as I
Yeah.
remember it.
Yeah. Very, very like well done thriller. That one was done by Fede Alvarez, who I really, really like. Um, and then, so this one it's kind of the same concept, um, the same sort of premise. But it's kind of weird because they make the old guy into the main character, which is kind of weird because
That
he's
is
such like a,
strange.
yeah,
Because
he's a real big piece of shit.
yeah, he's
So
a monster.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's an absolute monster. And so they make him into the main character, which is sort of weird. And then they pit him against a bunch of like neo-Nazi Iraq war veterans.
Right on.
And
That's on brand for for current year. Yeah.
yeah, and they like, because basically the idea is they think that he like torched one of their meth labs. And so it's like they come and find him basically. And so the first half of the movie is very similar to the first movie, where it's just them sneaking around his house trying to avoid him, and it's really well done again.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly brutal. Like this is one of the most brutal movies I've seen like in a long time. Like there's this one scene that like really, really got to me, where the old man puts like this industrial adhesive over this guy's mouth and nose.
Oh shit.
He can't breathe basically. His like mouth and nose are all covered up and he can't get the adhesive off. So the guy takes a screwdriver. What's that?
That's the name of the movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. But basically the guy takes a screwdriver and he has to plunge it through his cheek so that he can breathe through the hole in his cheek.
That's badass.
And it's really, really messed up. And like, it's good though. Or it's very like well done. And yeah, it's a nice tight thriller. It's like 90 minutes and it's kind of gets in and gets out. And yeah, it's not as good as the first though. The second half kind of goes to some weird places once they actually leave the house of the old man, unlike the first movie, and they go to a second location, and that's kind of when things get derailed a little bit, but it's still worth watching.
Right on.
Yeah.
We also had another this is a Netflix release. It's another black and white movie. Black and white is so hip these days. Yeah. It's the first offering from first-time director Rebecca Hall, and that's Passing. I still haven't watched this, but what did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good, especially for like a first-time director. It's a very, very like sparse movie. It relies pretty much 100% on the performances, and luckily the performances by Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga, the two leads.
And then the guy, that one dude from The Night
Bill
of.
Camp.
Bill Camp. Love that guy.
Bill Camp, yeah. Yeah, he shows up and he's pretty good too. And yeah, I mean, it's very like sparse. It's like the camera doesn't move a lot. There's a lot of like fade-ins and fade-outs to end scenes. And then like as far as the music in the movie goes, it only plays during like the scene transitions. Otherwise, there's like no music in the entire movie.
So she was like making a period film, literally, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It's very, very like old fashioned and very like performance driven, and there's not a lot of bells and whistles at all. And but yeah, the two lead performances are really good. Like they, if people don't know, it's basically about Tessa Thompson's character runs into Ruth Negga's at like a tea room, like where they serve tea, and they're like old high school friends, and Ruth Negga reveals that she's been passing as like a white person,
with blonde hair and such.
Yeah, to basically essentially just get treated better, and her husband even doesn't know. And her husband's played by Alexander Sarsgaard, and he's like incredibly racist in the movie. And And so, I mean, I guess you can probably guess where the movie's headed, you know?
Yes.
And so, but yeah, it was really good. Good performances. The only kind of weird thing I thought was one of the choices that I assume Rebecca Hall made was she kind of has them do like the weird 1950s movies, like mid-Atlantic accents. Do you
Yeah.
remember those?
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah. Like
way that
Cary
like
Grant. Yeah.
yeah, like Cary Grant or like Jimmy Stewart used to talk back in like the movies in the 50s. And it's kind of weird. It doesn't really work necessarily, I don't think. But it's not like annoying enough that it
Yeah.
distracts too much.
Most audiences these days would just be like, why are they talking so weird? Because nobody talks like that anymore. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Katharine Hepburn is long gone. Cary Grant, long gone. And not that many people watch old movies, unfortunately, because there's a
Mhm.
lot of them and they're great. But a lot of people are focused on the here and now, and Netflix doesn't put a lot of, or like none of these streaming platforms put a lot of movies from the 40s, 50s, or 60s on there. You're lucky to
No.
find a movie from the 70s these days.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little weird at first, but I mean you get used to it and it's not too distracting. But um and then the only other thing about the movie is there is the ending's kind of weird where it kind of feels like it belongs in like another movie because of how like restrained and like kind of how real life the movie had been up until that point. And I won't spoil it, but it kind of brings about a question. It's kind of like one of those questions that's like, did this person mean to do this or did they not? You know, that sort of question
Mm.
where it's like, was that person actually acting evil or were they not? Or was it just an accident? That, you know, that sort of thing.
Mm.
And the scene, once you see it or once anybody who's watching this will sees it, they'll kind of understand what I mean. It's kind of a little out there for a movie this grounded in reality, basically.
Gotcha.
uh,
Well, I'm definitely going to check that out.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's on Netflix, so I mean the barrier to entry is free basically, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
definitely worth watching.
Yeah. I was able to check out a documentary that I've been pretty excited to see for quite a long time. Just because I'd been following the story for about 10 years. But it's a movie called Enemies of the State. And just because I'm in the middle of, I'm doing like 17 things at once. So I'm blanking on like names and stuff like that. But the gist is this is the story of a documentary. It's done by a filmmaker who's an Errol Morris acolyte. He's a producer on this. And they do lots of neat things with recreations where they have actual audio of a lot of these really critical moments in the story, whether it be a court case or like an immigration hearing, and they will pipe in the actual audio over the actors. So they're lip syncing along with what was actually said. But it's
Okay.
about this guy who was one of the foundational, back end members of Anonymous. He ran the Tor servers that the Darknet operated on, and he facilitated a lot of like file transfers to organizations and entities like WikiLeaks, and took part in a lot of the anonymous hackery against like Scientology. He was the Guy Fawkes guy basically, and at some point, like in the year like 2010, 2011, the government or the like law enforcement goes after him, and they accuse him of like grooming and creating child pornography, but they find no child pornography in his home. They don't like they're like there's nothing in the house. They get none of it. But like he had gotten some kind of but like from his point of view and from his parents' point of view, because his parents had military backgrounds. They were in the NSA, before they became, Christian Protestants, like, preacher people. Yeah, so they already have a heightened sense of paranoia about the government because they know too much. They were, part of it. So when their son basically says, I got a hint that something that I was given to me to give to WikiLeaks, like had something really crazy in it. I got a hint that the government was going to be coming down on me, so I nuked the server, I backed up everything, and I hid the memory cards. And then they raid the house and and drop this you know you know investigation saying that he was luring teenage boys and getting dick pics from them, essentially. And his whole take is that, well, this is all fake. The government, whatever they say I had, they put it there themselves, because if you're a paranoid, this is the technology that our government does have. But it's a little too inside baseball. I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on too publicly, but it's a very fascinating story, because it becomes more so about, like, it's less about, well, is what this guy said true? Is it real that he's being persecuted by the government, or is it all just this big charade and mirage that he's putting on, to save face with his parents and somehow find allies to, save him from prosecution? And it's a prolonged story, and it does have surprises, even for someone like me who was pretty plugged into it, because there's some really chilling revelations made at the end that completely cement what the reality of the situation probably is. Because there's this moment where the subject, whose name is I'm just gonna pull it up now since I'm blanking on it.
Where was this? Is this on a streaming service, or is it rental?
Yeah, it's on IFC Films. So because I have AMC Plus, I was able to catch it on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it was hard to find. That's part of the reason why, like, when I saw that it was available, I was like, well, I'm just going to watch this, because I didn't have much opportunity to see a lot of stuff this week. Crap, I typed in the wrong thing, because I just want to get his name out there. But it's very fascinating, especially because it's just seeing, his paranoia seep into his parents, seep into the activists and lawyers who are trying to help him. And then you see and then there's just the sure confidence of the people prosecuting him and investigating him, going, God, no, he's full of shit, and they're holding cards back, basically. And the question is, well, are those cards, being held back out of, concern for the victims, or are they being held back because there are no actual victims? Because in a case like that involving, minors, nobody knows their names. It's very like if you really wanted to believe that they weren't real, you could believe that. So it's well presented, well polished. The recreation scenes keep everything flowing and moving forward. And Matt DeHart was his name, and it was going to be released at Tribeca in April 2020. COVID pushed it back, so it came out earlier this year to no fanfare whatsoever. Partially because I'm going to hint at a spoiler here. The revelations really undermine what a lot of the activist types might hope would be true. It only grossed $8,500 at the box office.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, not very impressive, but a very impressive film. And if you liked things like Citizen 4 or any of the documentaries about Julian Assange, this fits right into that canon, but it has another angle to it that really worked well for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So moving on to the Mentionables. You have been reading comics. You're pretty keeping up with that kind of thing. And what is the saga of Barton and Bishop? Is this Bishop the mutant?
No, this is Kate Bishop, the new Hawkeye. This is actually an older comic. This was from Matt Fraction's run, and this is the series that the Disney Plus series is largely based on. That's coming out soon here. Okay. And that's kind of the reason why I'm reading it, partially because of that, and then partially because I really, really like Matt Fraction. He's really good at doing like comedic comics, and I really, in the year 2020, he had a comic book out called Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
It's one of the best comics of that year, and probably one of my favorite comics ever. I don't know if anybody knows who Steve Lieber is, but he did the art on that. And Steve Lieber has like a very like Silver Age, like 60s look. Very classic look. And so, and it's kind of the same with this, except you swap out Steve Lieber with David. I think it's pronounced Aha, David Aha. And he has a similar art style. It's very like classic looking. But he kind of puts little like modern touches on it where he'll turn the panels of the comic into like action, like splash pages, and he'll like actually incorporate the panels into the action, and it looks really cool. But I don't know if I like this series quite as much as Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, because that series was more of like a direct comedy, whereas this has some like comedic elements, but it's a little more serious because, you know, of the character that you're dealing with. Clint Barton's Hawkeye, and then Kate Bishop's Hawkeye also, because he basically like passes the mantle to her. So it's a little more serious. But
this image I found, is this from what we're talking about?
Yep, it is.
Yeah. So yep. I just like the diagrams, you know, showing like all the things that, you know, make them what they are. The visual cues.
Yeah, it's really cool. Just it's filled with stuff like that where it's like, and like if you just look at like their portraits on there, it's, you know, it's all very like, it looks like the little bubbles that they used to have on the front covers of comics. Where they used to show what characters were going to show up in that comic, if you know what I'm talking about.
The Marvel heads, I guess that's what I called them. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, it's very good though so far, and I hope the show does the storyline justice.
That's Haley what's Stanfield?
Steinfeld.
Okay. Yeah, she's going to be playing Bishop. Yeah, because when I saw that in there, because I haven't kept up with comics nearly as much as I probably should, but when I saw that, I was like, "What? Bishop the mutant? What the fuck does he have to do with Hawkeye?" But whatever though. But like, I was looking, because I looked at it when I was looking at it, I was pricing it out. It's $40 for the full collection of that thing on Amazon. And a little rich for my blood at this time.
Oh, for the
hardcover.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense.
$40. Yeah, I think it's 22 issues, so it's a decent value, but yeah, it'll probably go lower once we get closer to Christmas,
I suppose. The mentionable that I have this week is a movie that's available on streaming. It's on Amazon Prime right now, and it's Francis Ford Coppola's, 1990s. I'm gonna call it a masterpiece, but it's Bram Stoker's Dracula. And I watched this with my girlfriend the other night, and I was just reminded of just all the wonderful, goofy things in this thing, like whether it be the costumes or the performances. But then there's also he was just going nuts as a filmmaker, just in terms of all the different tricks he was using to pull off his effects. Because keep in mind, this is near the time where Spielberg is just, making dinosaurs, walk the earth again. And he's doing in-camera effects shots, using miniatures and, projection photography and all kinds of wild stuff. And basically, this is just my hard recommend. If you want something from the past that is worth watching, if you have no idea what you want to see, watch this, because it has so many wonderful, awesome things in it. And it's my favorite version of the cinematic Draculas that we have. Mm-hmm. And Gary Oldman kills it. He fucking kills it in this movie. Have you seen that recently or even at all?
Yeah, I watched this movie a couple of years ago, and that's right there. That shot right there is what I always remember. Mm-hmm. Is like the weird, like the eyes over the horizon as he's like in that like stagecoach or is it a train or a stagecoach?
It's a train initially.
It's a train. Okay. Yeah. So that's one thing I always remember. And then the other thing I always remember is like the Dracula like battle scenes when he's in like his armor.
Yeah, in the beginning.
That's so wild.
Yeah, when you literally see him impaling people, and it's all of the battle scenes are hilarious because it's It looked like it's all meta because like of course it's Francis Ford Coppola because there's a like the methods they use to do those battle scenes, the silhouette photography is literally a like is highlighted in a different sequence when Dracula and Mina Harker go to a cinematograph exhibit, that Edison was putting on, and they do the exact same thing within like the context of that scene. So he's very self-reflexive. So that there's a reason why that movie bombed financially, but I can appreciate it from afar, for what it is. And Anthony Hopkins fucking kills it in that movie. He's so insane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and everybody else like Carrie Elwes, he's just Carrie Elwes, and there's just a good ensemble. It's worth an evening's watch if you have nothing else that is catching your eye. But now that we're done with the mentionables, the time has now come for us to get to the real meat of our time together tonight. It's the Korean cinema crash course, the best Korea super special. And just to get things started, we're just to explain why we're doing this. There was a little show on Netflix called Squid Game that took the world by storm, and it just dominated meme culture. It took over YouTube. People like Mr. Beast are literally trying to make their own Squid Games, and things like that. Like, it's caught the cultural fascination, but there was something quintessentially Korean about that movie that, it still is fascinating to me that it is able to bridge the culture and language barrier all the way here to the West and have a huge impact, much like Parasite did at the Oscars, like a cycle or two back. And I feel like the time has come to just really kick the door open for everybody else to look at what Korea has to offer, as far as, movies and beyond television, beyond streaming. It's like there's so many awesome things coming out of that peninsula. And we're just going to kind of go back and forth, talk about, each of us have picked three movies we want to highlight, whether because it's our favorite or it's one that we feel is a great example of Korean film, or is just maybe even an unconventional pick that probably wouldn't get recommended. Because there's all kinds of Korean movies, and if there's anything true of Korean cinema, it is that they take it to an extreme that most other cultures just don't quite get to. I guess, do you know what I mean when I say that?
Oh yeah. They do things like so, I don't know, so much more vividly. All their genres, no matter what it is, whether it's a comedy, a crime movie, a horror movie, is just taken more extremely than anything that happens in the US. Like, it's taken to the nth degree.
Yeah, exactly. Their revenge movies are the most revengiest. They're like, even their manic pixie dream girls are pretty much fucking insane, like, and yeah, there's everything that Korea does, they seem to take it to, like, even Squid Game. It's battle royale essentially, which already has its derivatives in the Hunger Games, but it made it, just I struggle to find the words to kind of talk about what the first few episodes of Squid Game were like for me, because I just burned through that show.
Yeah.
But it extraordinarily effective. They grab you by the throat and you're kind of stuck. Korean filmmakers don't let you get bored. They don't let you get distracted. Like, I tried to watch some of these movies to reacquaint myself with them as I was working and preparing for this show. And I found myself not getting any work done because I was just like, holy shit, like all over again watching these. Yeah. So the right off the bat, we're going to just kind of play a quick little clip from our first selection here that Matt's going to talk about, Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder.
Yeah. So this is my first pick, Memories of Murder. Probably want to start off by saying this is probably my favorite of the three movies that I chose. This is Bong Joon-ho's second feature movie. You'll know him from directing Parasite and The Host, but this is kind of one of his uh, kind of his breakout movie. And I guess to kind of start with a real quick story, I first heard about this movie in 2008 when I was working at the Century 10 movie theater in Fargo, North Dakota. I had a coworker named Alex who was like way more into film than I was. And he's like the kind of the guy who introduced me to like really crazy movies. Like I think he introduced me to like a Geary Wrath of God and like Come and See and stuff. And so it was pretty nuts, but he actually loaned me his DVD of Memories of Murder, which at the time was very hard to find. And it was like an $80 DVD, like a region-free DVD. You couldn't even get an American version. You had to get region-free.
And that's probably like $150 now with inflation.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so I just remember he loaned it to me, and I told him I would watch it. And I think I took like probably like 2 weeks to actually watch the movie. And he would ask me like every day, he's like, "You still have my movie, right? You still have my movie, right?" Because he was so like
possessive of it. Like that thing cost him $80. He had to buy it off of some weird website to get that thing.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But yeah, now that I look back on it, I mean, if he still has it, he probably treasures it, because I mean, now you can get a really, really sweet Criterion release of it, which I have, and it's pretty incredible. I would highly recommend just blind buying the Criterion Blu-ray of this. But to get into the actual movie, I picked this movie because I think it's like one of the best examples of like South Korean like crime movies. And it's based on a true story of like a series of rapes and murders that happened in the 80s in South Korea. And a really interesting wrinkle to the story is that the guy was actually caught like 2 years ago.
Yes.
So it's pretty wild to watch it like nowadays, especially in context to when the movie was made, he wasn't caught. So the ending of the movie is very ambiguous, and it's one of the best like final 5 minutes of any movie ever. Like it's incredible.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's like it kind of leaves you with this weird feeling where basically the main character goes back to the scene of the murders and talks to this little girl who it seems like ran into the murderer.
Yeah.
And the main character asks her what he looked like, and she just is like, plain, kind of plain.
Yeah.
Didn't literally look like anybody. And
he's just a like, man.
Yeah. You can just see like the like pain in his eyes, because he knows that it's never going to happen. Like he's never going to catch him. And then it ends with a shot of him looking at the camera that Bong Joon-ho said was intended for the murderer to go to the movie in theaters and see that shot in the movie and feel like something from that. And so that's kind of an interesting wrinkle, but yeah, this movie is just, it's so good. Like the performances are incredible. One guy I think we're probably going to talk about multiple times tonight.
Quite a bit.
Yes. Is it Sang?
Yeah.
What is his name again?
Song Kang-ho. Or no.
Kang-ho.
Or is it Kim Sang-kwon? We should make sure. I'm just gonna.
I think it's Song Kang-ho.
Yeah.
He's incredible in this, and his arc is just really good. And
he's like the Robert De Niro of Korea, or he's incredible. He's so versatile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's really good in this, and I guess one of the things I would also mention is the unique way the movie kind of combines like absurdist humor with like the serious subject matter.
Yeah.
Because there's like these weird scenes in the movie where the police, like the sort of beat cops, like fuck up a crime scene, And it's kind of played for laughs a little bit, and it's just really interesting. It's not like something you'd see in like an American movie where, if it was an American movie, they would write the jokes and then build the plot around it
Yeah.
instead of like the jokes coming naturally. And then there's like a lot of drop kicks in the movie
I was
too.
going to talk about that. Like
Yeah.
it's there's for some reason that's the go-to move for every cop. It's like, "Oh, I need someone to like this guy has I need to detain him. My first step in detaining him is to like roll down a hill and then drop kick him."
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. But it's really, it works though. I mean, they're like all this like weird humor really works in like the context of the movie, and it's something that they do a lot in South Korean movies, and it's just a different style of humor. And yeah, it's really interesting. That's kind of all I have to say. But anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, about the last shot and the
Mhm.
intention behind it. Unfortunately, the serial killer, the actual guy, who's I'm just gonna pull his name up because I did a lot of research on him because I sometimes write trivia questions for the place I work for quiz the quiz competition that they do.
Yeah.
And I did some research on the guy in question, and the crazy thing is he was already in jail. His last murder, he killed his sister-in-law, and
Oh, okay.
they arrested him and found him guilty for it. And this is something that comes up in the movie, is the reality that at South Korea at the time, they weren't as advanced as
Mhm.
the West was technologically. And even though DNA, evidence, really wasn't codified yet, and they weren't good at it yet as police investigators anywhere in the world at that time, they had semen. They couldn't use it to connect it to anybody. And then, like, all those years later, they finally run the DNA that they have, and they connect it to him because they finally start getting DNA from all the people who are in Korean the penal system, and that's how they got him to admit that he was the guy. So
Okay.
he never got to see the movie
Oh, okay.
unless he saw it in jail
Sure.
and or in prison.
Interesting.
But yeah, his name was Lee Jun-che, and yeah, he killed 14 women and young girls between
Jeez.
1986 and 1991. This was the South Korea's Zodiac. This was
Mhm.
the one that shook the whole country and made everybody stay home at night and be scared. And yeah, the thing that got him off the streets was him getting arrested and charged for a murder that had nothing to do with the serial killings.
Okay.
And you bringing up all of the humor, is really important because it's going to be coming up again, as we keep going. But the yeah, he's Bong Joon-ho is a really funny, like, he's a funny guy, like, as far as his filmmaking goes. Parasite is a
Mhm.
hilarious movie, for
Oh yeah, for
example.
sure.
And even in his more, it doesn't matter if it's serious fare or not, there will be some little like weird thing that a person does that will just always make me chuckle. There's always the strangeness of human nature, and especially the strange like little quirks that Korean culture tends to have. So
Hmm.
yeah, but I agree with you. This is I saw this much later, than I probably should have, but it was because it hadn't been localized and brought over to us yet. But I saw this a few years ago for the very first time, and it was well worth the wait, but infuriating
Hmm.
that it took so long for something this good to be widely available.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and if you yeah, I'm just gonna sorry, I fell behind here. I need to get some of these other little things set up so we can move forward to the next one. So I'll that's really all I had to say about Memories of Murder. But I loved the supporting cast. I loved all the other detectives. They were all just
Yeah.
lovable fuck ups. Because
Uh-huh.
that was something that really was driven home by this, was just how shitty law enforcement in South Korea was at the time. They were not good at their jobs. And
Hmm.
the way that they were doing it was all wrong. They're manufacturing evidence, just because they're just desperate to have anything to work with.
Hmm.
And yeah, just a very but a very worthwhile experience for anybody who would decide to seek it out.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And my first selection, I'm gonna lighten the mood barely for a second. This movie is a weird little nut to crack. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a clip with subtitles, so I'm not gonna let it run too long. But it's a quirky little family movie, basically, called Miracle on Cell Block 7. So, here's the clip. Oh, it's not working. Great. Technical difficulties. But boom, there we go.
야, 설마 그
Oh,
편지만 빼놨겠냐?
there are subtitles.
그래, 걔말 여자들 그 몸 풀고 그러면 힘들어. 뭐만 편지 쓸 기력이나 있겠냐? 괜찮아.
삼촌.
이거 뭐야? 야, 너 이거 어디서 났어?
영훈이한테 빌렸어.
이거 장난감 아니야 이거? 이거 뒤에 가지고 들어오면 안 되긴 안 되는데. 빨리 해요. 좀. 해봐. 네. 안테나 뽑아. 안 돼. 야, 안 되는데? 왜? 나 씨. 안 돼. 이거 안 돼. 이거. 아이씨. 이상하다. 왜안 되냐? 나 이게 진짜. 예수가 이거. 잠깐. 잠깐. 신호 갔다.
여보세요? 여보세요? 니누꺼?
여보세요?
택시 받는 전화 있다.
드디어.
나 혼자 애랬다.
네가 울지 마.
So this was directed and written by Lee Hwan-kwang, who I haven't seen anything else that he's made, but the cast is huge. It has a great performance by a child actress named Kal So-won, and there's other familiar faces from movies like Old Boy, if you can believe that. But it's a bizarre little genre blender of a movie. The best way to describe it is it's like Shawshank Redemption meets... I had it all in my head. My brain is mush right now. Hang on. Yeah, it's I Am Sam meets the Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
So imagine I Am Sam. You have a mentally feeble father, single father, raising a young girl on his own, and they have this wonderful connection. They both love watching Sailor Moon. They both can do the theme song and the dance. And yeah, it's set in the 90s initially, and it's wrapped up in a framing device where his daughter, as an adult and a lawyer, is trying to exonerate her father for the murder and rape of a child.
Okay.
And then,
again with the combining the comedic with the not so comedic.
Oh God! Like this movie, like threads the fucking needle, because it one little thing out of place and none of this would have worked, especially for a guy like me, who I can't stand, sappy, wholesome shit most of the time. But this movie just broke me. I had to have a good time. My buddy Steve found out about this last year, actually, and it was impossible to find, but he acquired it through dubious means, and we were able to see it. We have a shared hard drive that our household uses, and so he is obviously arrested and sent to jail, and he's put into this pod with a bunch of hardened gangsters and fraudsters, and they hate him. He's a child murderer. How could if they would kill him if they could. And then he saves the leader in a yard fight. And then they're like, okay, you're cool. Like we're the people in the prison who get things for people. What can we get for you to pay you back for saving my life? And he's like, I want to see my daughter. And this whole movie becomes about them smuggling his daughter into the prison constantly and like sneaking her out and hiding her from the guards. And it's just this, and it has like, I don't know if you caught it, but that like whip pan whoosh sound, it has all kinds of weird little like slapsticky elements to it.
Okay.
You know, and the lighting, the sun is always just burning through the windows. There isn't any darkness in this movie at all. The sun is always shining. And so even though the subject matter, you know, tips its toes into very familiar Korean, you know, territory, it still remains extremely optimistic and happy. And, you know, it's a wholesome little family film. It like from one sequence, it's like Memories of Murder. The next sequence, it's like, you know, like watching a Disney movie, you know, or some, you know, trite, you know, like ABC Family original movie or a Lifetime Hallmark thing. Like it's schmaltzy. This movie was hugely popular when it first came out. It was released during the holiday season, so families went to it in droves. And boomer Koreans ate this shit up. So I guess I am like them, because like it worked for me on a whole bunch of different levels. Like the gangster who like starts protecting the father and helping him out is played by the guy from Old Boy who runs the secret prison. You know, for people who are unfamiliar with Old Boy, spoiler alert, we're not talking about it tonight. You know, so you're just gonna have to look it up yourself. But against type for him, because he's usually like a really skeezy character actor, and in this he's like, and that's the thing, like this little girl gets into this pod with these hardened criminals and they all just melt, and eventually like half the guards and half the prison are trying to help them, you know, keep this ruse going, and it, you know, it eventually, you know, turns into this like Ocean's 11 caper movie when they're trying to figure out, well, how can we get, you know, our buddy exonerated? Oh, we can't get him exonerated. Well, then we just need to get him and his daughter, you know, free. We need to make sure that they can escape and have a life, you know, away from all this. And it has like it's a little overlong. It's overstuffed because it's like 17 different genres happening all at once. But I don't know. I really recommend it. And guess what? You can finally stream it for free on the Roku channel, you know, with some ads. But I was really surprised to find it anywhere at all, because it is such a quintessentially Korean movie that it is, you know, that, yeah, there's a reason why they haven't tried to bring it over here. But what is fascinating is how many different, you know, other countries have made their version of this movie. And that's also something that is very true of all the really good Korean movies. Old Boy has its Indian remake, its Turkish remake, you know, just like this movie does. You know, just for example, like a lot of other burgeoning, you know, cinema, you know, territories look to Korea to get their ideas, and they don't always pay for the rights for them. And and that happened in this instance as well. So like that to me just kind of signaled, okay, the world found something in this bizarre little thing, and they're trying to do something with it. And apparently so is some US studio, because they've bought the rights. But definitely see this one before you see what America does with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to definitely, this is actually the only movie that we're talking about tonight that I haven't seen.
I picked a good one.
And so I'm going to definitely seek it out, especially, you know, I have a Roku, so I'm going to look it up on there, because if, you know, for free, might as well, you know.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So forgive me, what's the next one on the list, Matt? I don't have it up, unfortunately.
Yeah, so my next one is a movie called Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, Spring.
Indeed. Okay, so I'm just going to get this clip ready.
Yep.
Here.
So this is done by Ki-Duk Kim, and he's a pretty celebrated movie director in South Korea. Not so much more recently, because he kind of had a shitty past couple of years with some allegations, and then he actually died last year of COVID-19
in Latvia, of all places.
Yeah, in Latvia, yeah, like vacationing or something. And so, yeah, but he makes a lot of really, really good movies. If you're able to kind of separate the art from the artist, which is something something that I can do, it's definitely worth seeking his stuff out. And I think this is the best kind of that he has to offer.
All right. Well, without further ado, here's a clip from spring, summer, fall, winter, spring.
Yeah, so the reason why I picked this movie is because I think it's a really great depiction of Buddhism, the religion that's kind of most commonly associated with South Korea and many other Asian countries. The whole movie itself is, maybe if you can't tell by the title, it's an allegory for the cycle of life. And it's a one location film set in this incredible like monastery that's on like in the middle of like a lake on like a floating platform, and it looks so incredible. Like the whole movie, it actually like reminds me a lot of the like nonfiction movie Baraka.
Yes.
You ever seen that?
Oh yeah.
Just like the shots.
You showed me Baraka.
Oh,
Yeah.
what?
That
Was me, really?
Yeah, that was my first experience with Blu-ray cinema mode, God mode TV. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of, because every shot is like incredible. Like you get these like stunning shots of like mountains and the lake and like these ice waterfalls and just like fog up in like the hills, and it's just incredible. And it follows this young monk and an old monk who live at this monastery. And the old monk is kind of trying to pass off his wisdom onto the younger one. And the younger one, he actually kind of leaves for a while and comes back. And I won't get into the reasons why, but he sort of seeks out other like things in life other than like religion and
enlightenment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and the old guy is just kind of trying to like pass on like his wisdom, and he does that through like a lot of sort of like little lessons and stuff. And so, and then also I'll mention this has I can't remember his name, but the old guy from Squid Game in it.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull that up because I have forgotten his name as well, even though it was
it
was on the credits. But
I think it's actually I might have it here. Oh Young Soo.
Oh Young Soo. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a fascinating actor because apparently his specialty was playing Buddhist monks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Before Squid Game came along, all of his roles was playing Buddhist monks, and this was the most prominent of them.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. So he's in this movie, and he's really, really good in it. And yeah, the movie's just kind of, it's very slow paced, and it's very like meditative. And it's just like a movie that you kind of just let wash over you, and you just kind of appreciate it. And I have a lot of like respect for the religion of Buddhism. I would never like practice it myself, but I look at it and I can see a lot of things that I respect in it. So it's kind of like one of those things where you watch it and just kind of, it has a lot of like stuff to impart on you. And yeah, that's pretty much anything you have to say.
Well, like without diving too deeply into like the last few years of Kim Ki-duk's life, but it's the lesson at the core of this movie. There's a reason why it's there, because like I feel like especially since he plays the older version of the little boy from that we see grow up throughout the film. It almost like this seems almost like a lesson for himself, if that makes any sense. Just like without spoiling too much of the content of the movie. But yeah, it's a tone poem. It's just gorgeous to look at. The music is incredible, and yeah, there's nothing else like it. And there aren't too many filmmakers, whether they be European, American, or otherwise, who could make something this indelible, and have it ring out for forever like this. Because this movie is talked about a lot. Like I'm subscribed to a East Asian cinema fan page on Facebook, and there's so many reposts about this movie. Like this movie somebody somewhere finds this movie, every day, and it's because it's so powerful. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's great. And then one last thing I'll mention is I couldn't find it streaming anywhere except to rent. So just so anybody watching this knows, but it is a very cheap rental. I think it was when I watched it was like $2.99. So
yeah, there you go. Definitely seek it out. It's like a lot of his movies can be very uncomfortable, but that's pretty much all Korean film is really uncomfortable. You are not made to feel safe. Even Miracle on Cell Block 7, you don't feel safe in that movie, even when it's wrapping you up in a warm hug, because you're just waiting for it to like fucking stab you in the back. and not exaggerating. Yeah. My next film is this is not only one of what I think is one of the best Korean films in recent memory. It's in my top 10 of all time. I'm not sure where, but it's there. And it's the modern. Oh dang it! I accidentally opened it too soon. In the wrong program even, but it's I Saw the Devil, and here we have a little bit of it to show you.
대한민국 경찰이 이렇게 빨리 찾아? 기가 막히는구만.
Thank you, movie clips.
니들이 아직 내 신상 파악이 안 된 모양인데. 하긴 뭐 우리나라 경찰이 다 그렇지 뭐. 그건 그렇고.
That's all I really have to show from that, because that sequence is one of many memorable ones from director Kim Ji-woon. He adapted the script by Park Hoon-jung, and it's got the two superstars of Korean cinema, Choi Min-sik and Lee Byung-hun, going at it. And most people would know Choi Min-sik from Oldboy. It's the quintessential Korean revenge movie. Like it's so good Hollywood had to do it. It was so good that Roger Ebert didn't know what to do with it. But this one, for me, as much as I love Oldboy, this one surpasses it, because it does so much more with the revenge movie, so much more with the serial killer movie than anybody anywhere, because this is well-trod genre ground for all of cinema. There's so many revenge movies. Serial killer movies are a huge fascination for people. But this one is just a incendiary, brutal experience. You don't really get a chance to breathe, because the moments where this movie breathes, there's still a lot of awful shit happening. You know what I mean? The parts where people get to take a break and take a breather, there still is all this repugnant, awful human behavior going on. And I'll just get into telling you like what the movie's actually about. But basically, the beginning of this movie is a serial killer doing his thing. Choi Min-sik is a school bus driver, and he just preys on poor women and girls who are on his bus route. And he has an entire like farm complex that's just like a killing floor for him. And you literally watch him butcher Lee Byung-hun's wife. Like you see the body parts, getting thrown in a box and stuff like that. And it's just brutal right out the gate. And a lot of people quit this movie in the first 10 minutes, which is a shame, because there's so much more, for people to get. Because Lee Byung-hun's character happens to be a Secret Service agent, or like a CIA agent in Korea. And he has all these capabilities to get the kind of revenge that most of the families of victims of serial killers don't get. So he's able to know who did it, or at least deduce it, over the beginning of the movie. And he's just not satisfied with simply killing this guy. He wants to hunt him. He wants to hurt him. He wants to make him suffer. And he puts a tracking device in the serial killer's mouth and then just like dumps him so that he can, go and track him down and find him and beat the shit out of him and, cut his Achilles tendon and do whatever he wants to him. And the great thing about this movie, though, and why it's so awesome seeing these two actors, go head to head in this, because like Choi Min-sik is just wonderful as this serial killer. It's just one of his. It's like it's kind of understated because he doesn't say very much, and he does most of his acting just kind of with these little like sneers and like he feels like he's the most capable motherfucker because he's been able to do this for so long. And then he runs into this guy who's literally doing to him what he does to people and getting the same kind of satisfaction out of it. And, and it's this game of cat and mouse. The tables turn multiple times throughout the movie, but what doesn't change is that it's relentless. It doesn't let up. It's got some of I just can't say enough about it. I recommend it highly. And it's one of the finest entries in the great revenge movie canon from Korea. And I pray to God that no one ever tries to remake this, because it should just be what it is. No one could do this. Nobody else could make this movie. Or at least like it would pale in comparison, much like Spike Lee's Old Boy was just trash compared to what the original was. And and talk about, like the last 5 minutes of this movie stuck with me forever. And it has this great underlying Buddhist theme about the emptiness of, eating that cold dish called revenge. It's like, there's a reason. It's like you're not serving it to the person you're killing. You're serving it to yourself. And, and ultimately it's all pointless. You just destroy yourself in trying to seek retribution in this life, basically. And its message is well received, but if you can endure its running time, you can handle pretty much anything.
Yeah, I real quick will say, like, yeah, this movie is very, very brutal, but if you can sort of power through it, I think that for my money, this is like the best movie of any of our picks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is my favorite out of all six of the movies that we're going to talk about. I love all of them, but this is probably the best one. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say about it.
Yeah, it's very unexpected at the time. Like because this was the first movie that Choi Min-sik had made in like I forget the amount of time that he stepped away from film, but Korea has these weird rules, or at least they used to have weird rules about what movies could be shown, because they wanted to conserve and protect and support their own domestic box office for Korean films. So, international films, Hollywood films had limited engagements, could only be on so many screens for so long, and Korean films took precedence. And they changed those rules at some point, and he said, "This is bullshit. I'm done acting. I won't act again until things go back to the way they were." And this was his return. And like that's
Okay.
what like made me pay attention to it, in the first place, because I was like, "Oh, my boy's back." But then he really he doesn't take a back seat, but Lee Byung-hun is awesome in this, and people will know him as the front man from Squid Game, which is hilarious because they literally mention him in that show, like, by name, the two girls, when like they sing a song that he's famous for or something.
Oh,
And then
okay.
he's in the show. But he does an excellent job in this, just showing grief and rage, and yet again they have a great final shot of just an actor's face. It has a different purpose in this movie compared to Memories of Murder, but yeah, recommend this one highly.
Mhm.
Definitely check it out. If you can, where can you find this one?
Yeah, so
It's
I
on
actually
it's on VOD Canopy. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I was kind of looking into that because it had been on Netflix for the longest time, but
I
they recently
know.
took it off.
I know.
But
Like I went to watch it and I was like, where the fuck did it go?
but yeah, it's on are you familiar with Canopy?
No, what is that?
Okay. So Canopy is cool because it's like a streaming service for people with library cards where like you if you have a library card from any library in the US,
Okay.
all you have to do is go on Canopy's website and you like attach like your library card number to your profile, and there's a shitload of movies to watch for free, completely for free, and this is one of them. So
Good plug, Matt. Good
yeah.
plug. They got themselves a customer as soon as I go down to the Mandan Public Library and sign myself up. Oh my god. No, that's very funny. Okay. And next we have another, like, a more recent film. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's the most recent out of all of them, but it's awesome. And that would be Burning. And I'll quickly get the clip ready to go.
Yeah, so while you
Forgive,
do
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
this is Lee Chang-dong, another very prolific South Korean filmmaker. He like he's known for taking really big breaks between his movies, but this is his last movie. I think it came out 2 years ago, and between his second most recent movie and this, there was an 8 year gap.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
he
that's
only
right.
makes movies about once every 6 to 8 years he'll make a movie, and they're always really really good. But I think this is probably his best.
And I apologize for the quality of this clip. We're at the mercy of the sources that we have available to us. But yeah, here we go. We have a short scene from Burning.
혹시 혜미하고 연락되세요? 저는 연락이 안 돼서요, 한 달째.
그렇죠. 나도 걔 연락이 안 돼요. 혜미는 그냥 연기처럼 사라졌어요.
혹시 혜미한테 무슨 이야기 들으신 거 없으세요?
무슨 얘기요?
여행을 가고 싶다고 했다거나 아니면
나도 잘 모르지만 여행은 안 갔을 거예요. 여행 갈 돈이 없거든요. 내가 알기로 혜미는 지금 돈이 한 푼도 없어요. 가족하고도 연락 안 하고 지내고 친구도 없어요. 혜미 보기보다 되게 외로운 여자예요. 근데 종수 씨 그거 알아요? 혜미가 종수 씨 특별하게 생각한 거. 나한테 그랬어요. 이 세상에서 자기가 믿는 하나밖에 없는 사람이라고. 언제나 자기 편이 돼줄 사람이라고. 그 말을 듣는데 괜히 질투가 나더라니까요. 지금까지 살면서 질투 같은 거 해본 적이 없는데.
Yeah, so Burning is the story. It's about a guy who's like a delivery man, and he runs into a woman that was his old neighbor, and they get to talking. And basically, she asks him to babysit her cat for her while she takes a trip to Africa. And she comes back from Africa with like a male friend that she met while she was there. And the movie kind of plays with a lot of ambiguity as far as that his intentions, her friend from Africa, and everyone's intentions, hers, the delivery man, like it does ambiguity very well. And the man that she brings back is, as you can see by the clip, is played by Steven Yeun, who is actually an American. I think he was American-born actor. Who kind of went over there for this movie, probably to work with Lee Chang-dong, and he's really chilling in the movie. He plays this just chilling douchebag role very, very well. And I chose this movie because it does like the thriller genre really, really well, but not within like the confines of like a police story or like a crime story. It's just kind of a really well done thriller. And I'm not going to get too much into the plot because the movie is very mystery heavy. And I think once you kind of know the threads to that mystery, it kind of ruins it. So I'm not going to really get into that any more than what I already said. But basically, it's one of those movies where you watch it once and then you think you have everything figured out and you're satisfied with your conclusion, but then you watch the movie again and you're like, wait a second, I didn't see that scene before, or I didn't see that person's facial expression the last time I saw this. And, or like, I didn't see this background detail. And then you start questioning your theories and you start questioning your conclusions. And it's just that type of movie where it's like, who's in the right here, who's in the wrong, and you're never going to know the real answer to it because they give you evidence for every possible solution. It's really, really good though. And I don't have too much more to say about it. It's really beautifully shot. I wanted to note the cinematographer. His name is Kyung Pyo Han, and he also did Parasite, The Wailing, and Snowpiercer.
Right on.
So yeah, it's high pedigree, this movie.
Right on, dude. Yeah, no, I saw this movie very recently, actually, like within the last 3 months. That was the first time I got to see it. And that ambiguity you point to, it's on steroids. And yet again, it's something that most filmmakers would not be able to get away with. Like having there's no satisfaction to this story. Whatever conclusions you draw from it are not satisfying. So like you're kind of right that like it's best to just let it wash over you and let it sit with you, because that's what this movie really did for me. It's like I thought about this movie a lot after I saw it, and I went back to it a couple times just to reappraise it and try and wrap my head around it. And the performances, especially from the lead, because there's this little subplot, like where his father has to like go to jail, for I forget.
Oh yeah.
And
like tax evasion or something.
Yeah, and then and so he's constantly being pulled from this rural environment where he grew up and the city, where he lives, and then there's the affluence that Steven Yeun's character flashes in front of him, like with that Porsche, 911, like in that clip that we ran. But yeah, like the question really does become, it's like, well, who is reliable? Like what perspective can we trust? And and that really comes because in the title card, I wanted to highlight the fact that this is drawn from two semi-related, different source materials. There's a William Faulkner short story called Barn Burning, which is like where the whole side plot with the father and the farm comes from. And then there's another book by Haruki Murakami, the Japanese author, that shares the title and kind of does something more akin to what this movie is actually about, as far as the source material is concerned. But the ambiguity is present in both. Like, I've read the William Faulkner book, and like it was either high school or college, but it was like right around my senior year, freshman year. And yeah, like it's a dense little short story, much like how this movie is visually, dense and striking. And yeah, this movie has had a huge impact. Like, a lot of people rate it very highly. But like what about this is really we kept on coming, like when we were working on this, the phrase quintessentially Korean. What would you say is quintessentially Korean about this one?
I would say just kind of the genre, the sort of thriller. I mean, a lot of South Korean movies do kind of, when they're in the thriller genre, they do take place within like the confines of like police stories or like crime.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of touches on crime a little bit, but it's just like very like culturally Korean too, as far as like sort of pitting the classes against each other, as far as like him coming from the farm, the main character, and then Steven Yeun's character being more like affluent.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's always at like the bar with like girls,
Mm-hmm.
and like the guy is like sort of stalking him, like the main character, and he's basically jealous of like his entire life. And there's a lot of like class strata in this movie that is very like, because in Korea, they still like very, very much have those classes like well established.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost to an extent. I don't think it's as severe, but it's almost to an extent of like India's like caste system.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you're a poor person, you're a poor person. If you're a rich person, you're a rich person, and never the twain shall meet.
Yeah, which is what made Parasite so. I guess that's what it got people's eye about Parasite, because like that's the focus of that movie. And where was I gonna? I had a thought in my head. This movie was the breakout, because I didn't realize this. Before Burning, there hadn't been a Korean film that was nominated for Best Foreign Film.
Okay.
It opened the door, and then the very next year, Parasite won the Big Kahuna. And wasn't even nominated for Best Foreign Language Film. It just went right into the the main race, the main event. But this movie opened the door, because like it blew people, blew their hair back a little bit. Mm-hmm. Even though it's pardon the pun, it is a slow burn. It oozes. It's one of those kinds of movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
one last thing I'll mention is a lot of people, I mean, like you said before, a lot of people from these movies we're talking about are going to show up in a lot of different Korean movies, but then also we're going to be seeing a lot of these people in like American movies.
Yes.
In the next couple of years. And one thing I wanted to touch on was, and I guess this isn't necessarily American, but the female lead from this movie, her name is Jung-seo.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to be in Anna Lily Amapur's next movie.
Really?
Called Mona Lisa and the Blood Moon.
What the fuck?
That's all I know about it. I haven't read up on it, but I guess just look forward to that. She's going to be appearing in that, and I think that's going to be a trend that we're going to see with a lot of these people from these movies. Yeah,
they're not just good because Lee Byung-hun, his big Western breakout, unfortunately, is G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra. So some people are going to be able to have a little bit more of a respectable approach to their entry into Western fare.
Yeah.
But his name keeps popping up because he's so important to this particular era of the Korean boom. We started out with him with Memories of Murder, and he's just tried his hand at every conceivable kind of movie, even creating his own like genres in like one specific instance. But my first Bong Joon-ho movie was actually his 2009 effort Mother, and since I was able to have my ducks in a row, I have it prepared so I can get right into the clip for that.
Okay.
괜찮아? 괜찮아? 도준아 난다.
알았어, 엄마 들어가.
도준아 너 피나잖아. 왔다. 쟤 피나잖아. 이럴 줄 알았어. 이거 아줌마 피잖아.
사실 그 골프장 로얄 팰리스 간주래. 글로 갔어? 새끼야. 이 동네.
So that was, a clip from Mother. It's a powerhouse of a movie that is driven by its lead performance by Kim Hae-ja. However, I apologize. We should have probably apologized for our pronunciations before we started. But I think we did a gamely effort of it. But it's just about, yet again, it's like it's focusing on class. This is set in a small town in Korea. She is an unnamed, she's just a mother. Her character doesn't have a name. And she has an adult son who is also feeble-minded. This was also a kind of a reoccurring theme, from like Memories of Murder to, The Miracle, and this one where you have police going for low-hanging fruit, seemingly, and going after, okay, well, we can just convince this guy to say what we want him to say, and then we can indict him and convict him because he admitted to it, because he didn't know what he was admitting to. So it unfortunately, it kind of reminded me a great deal of that documentary I mentioned earlier. As I was watching Enemies of the State, I was thinking of Mother. Because those two parents were doing exactly the same, like they were moving heaven and earth to try and save their son in that instance, much like this character in this movie. And it like a lot of Korean movies, it's it's on the periphery of the procedural, because it's this mother doing her own investigation to try and determine what the heck actually happened and who really did it, because she knows in her heart her son couldn't have done this. And there's lots of red herrings, and lots of like really, like it's a slow-paced movie. There's not action in it. This is we very rarely like leave, like there are parts where the mother isn't on screen, but when she's on screen you're just like locked in on her face, and you just see every wrinkle and worry, and it had a very powerful effect on me, especially the ending. Like the Korean movies always just have this way of just really twisting the knife in one last time and then giving you a pat on the head and sending you home. And Bong Joon-ho especially, he's the master of just treating you nicely, kicking you in the mouth, cinematically, and still giving you a lot to take away from it. Like, what did you think of this movie when you first saw it?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you said this was your first Bong Joon-ho movie?
It was, yeah. Before I saw The Host, before I saw any of his movies, this was my first one, because it had come out, it was 2009. I was, in college and getting into foreign film quite a bit. and it was on Netflix. You know, they happened to have it, and yeah, it blew me away the first time I saw it.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, this is actually my last Bong Joon-ho movie that I watched. So this was I actually only watched this for the first time probably like no more than like 6 months ago.
Right on.
And just because I don't know why, I just never got around to it, I guess. And yeah, I really, really liked it. Like the final, well, I guess it's not the final scene, but one of the final scenes is absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
In like the barn, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's absolutely crazy. But yeah, I think this was really well done. I like it. I like it better when he goes a little more serious, when Bong Joon-ho does, like this movie.
Yeah.
When he's a little more serious, and because sometimes he leans pretty far in like the comedic direction, like with The Host,
especially,
which is a pretty funny movie. But yeah, I like this one a lot.
Yeah, not a lot of laughs. It really just you just get devastated throughout it. Yeah, especially especially when all is laid bare, and after you take into account everything she's done and gone through. The final scene, like I guess, there's some really crazy good acting from her from Kim in like the last like 15-20 minutes of this thing. And I would have given her a fucking Oscar, because like, but we don't have the cultural context. It's like she was like the Jan Brady of Korea. She made her whole career out of being Korea's mom on TV, just on one show or the other. And then when he wrote this movie, he was like, okay, you're the one. You're going to be in this. And she was just like, okay, I guess I will. Because this is like one of her only film credits. And, and she's a well-loved and respected, celebrity and humanitarian and whatnot. But to have somebody who usually just read sitcom scripts for a living, to have this kind of range and depth to her performance, I'm still impressed by it, even removed by time. But yeah, watching it again in preparation of this, I just was confirmed that my pick was correct to bring it up, because it's not one that most people would recommend for him, because his filmography is so vast, and it's he's done so much since then, and this was his last small movie, because after this he's Spielberg. He's never going to make something this intimate again, in that kind of way. Yeah, but that's the end of the Best Korea Super Special. Just to run down the titles again, we had Memories of Murder, Miracle on Cell Number 7. Golly, I'm such a dummy here. Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, Spring. I Saw the Devil, Burning, and as we just discussed, finally here, Mother. And hopefully people can seek them out and find them, because there's more to this world than Squid Game, people. Especially there's more to this country than Squid Game, and a lot of the people in that actually have a lot more to them, as far as their own filmographies are concerned, that should be sought out, at least in my opinion. That's our hope for doing this whole special to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So looking ahead to next week, what do we got coming out next week, Matt?
Yeah, so next week, biggest movie probably coming out is Ghostbusters Afterlife. And that is actually the movie that we're going to be doing our big review on next week. So look forward to that. And then we've also got King Richard on HBO Max. And that's a new sort of Will Smith vehicle about the father of Venus and Serena Williams.
Been heavily advertised. And you know what? It's been too long since we had a good Will Smith Oscar bait movie. So maybe this one will be worth it in the end.
And then we've got Come On, Come On, Joaquin Phoenix starring Mike Mills movie, which if anybody who watches the podcast will know, I saw already, and kind of was a little bit iffy on. I mean, see it if you like Mike Mills movies, and I guess that would sort of be my recommendation on that one. And then we've also got the long anticipated premiere of Cowboy Bebop on Netflix.
Oh my God, how many years have we been waiting for this?
Yeah, it's been a while. John Cho turned like 40 years old in the time that it took to get this.
Well,
he's pretty old
because he got hurt, didn't he? Like during production, they had to shut down for a while because of that.
Yeah, he got hurt, and then I think it was just in like development hell for a really long time too. And he went from like a mid-30s man to a 40-year-old man,
and you can tell like he is. I don't know, not to spend too much time on it, but the feedback is actually kind of muted for it. And I don't know how to take that, whether it means that, well, the critics hate it, it must be good, or that maybe they're actually right about something for a change, for the right reasons. I mean, because maybe it's just it looks like $1 million or like $1 billion because they spent that much on it and they spent that much time. Mm-hmm. But God damn it, all I care about is that corgi. I bit hard on the fake news that it was going to be a husky instead. At the time, I believed that for years when they first announced the movie.
Okay,
but
and then we've also got another highly anticipated TV show premiere, The Wheel of Time on Amazon.
Did you ever read those books, Matt?
I haven't. No, I kind of looked at how many there were and said, "Fuck no."
like Mike. I thought about reading those books because my cousins were reading them at the family reunion one summer. And I was like, oh, like how many books are there? Like they're like, and they were like, oh, there's supposed to be like a bunch more, but the author's dead, and somebody else has been. And that's when I was like, okay, I don't want to fuck with that. So, but now we can see like who's the star of that?
Rosamund Pike?
Finally doing something. Well, even though she's still playing an ice queen, from what I can tell, but at least it's just something different than Gone Girl, because that's really. She's done that same role like 3 times since.
Oh yeah,
it seems like.
Yeah,
like I Care a Lot. That was a goofy little movie.
That was she's really good at playing those really like big bitches, basically.
Yeah, but then
and then
Netflix is bringing more Korea our way.
Yes, yeah. So this one, kind of in keeping with our theme, this is a new Korean series called Hellbound, which comes from Sang-ho Yeon, who is the director of Train to Busan.
Which is a lot of people love that out here. Yeah.
Huge Korean movie. And then, that's coming from him. And then I was actually looking at the cast for it. And the main star in that is actually Yoo-ah-in, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who is the lead from Burning.
Yeah, like the trailer I saw, I was like, oh wait a minute, like I know that guy.
Yeah,
but then I also saw those weird golem creatures, and I have no idea what this show is about.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but so I mean, look forward to those. And like I said before, I think we're gonna be hitting Ghostbusters Afterlife next week. So look forward to that.
Can I just ask you, like, how like. I just feel weird because like a few years ago I would have been like, I guess pre-2016 I would have been over the moon to be able to go see a new Ghostbusters movie like this one, but it's just kind of I haven't been paying attention to it at all, and now it's here. But like I'm not really sure what my question was supposed to be, but it's like, isn't it just kind of strange how this movie, did it sneak up on you too, or is it just me?
Yeah, it kind of did. Well, I mean, this was another one of those like casualties of the pandemic, where they've moved the release date like 3 or 4 times, I think. So it's just kind of one of those ones that I stopped paying attention to, because at some point it was just like, well, I'll pay attention to it when it's in the theater and I can pay money to go see it.
Yeah.
So I've kind of tuned out of this movie. The only thing I know about it is that Paul Rudd's in it and the kid from Stranger Things, and that apparently it's directed by Jason Reitman, which is kind of cool because of his father, who did the other ones. So
Exactly. All right, now I'm gonna get us ready for our final segment here, our invitation to Zen. And since it's the month of November, I know we're halfway through it, but there's a certain phenomena known as No Nut November. Do you know what that is, Matt?
I'm tangentially familiar with,
Okay.
with the concept.
The concept of No Nut. Okay.
Welcome to day 5 of Pokenut November. For those of you who don't know what Pokenut November is where for every day of the month of November I roll a random number generator, and the number I get corresponds to the Pokedex number of the Pokemon that I have to nut to for that day. Gonna try and speed this one up because I actually have to go somewhere really soon. Last episode I got Raichu. It's a Gen 1 Pokemon, so there was lots of content. Not the hardest thing ever. Let's roll. Generate. 828. Let's see. Oh, that's really recent. Well, looking like that, there's gotta be some content. Funny thing, episode 3 actually got muted for a little bit, but I asked for another manual review of the video, and it was okay. It went up.
Just lie there and think about nothingness.
Oh, so glad you actually got to experience that.
That was a good one.
It wasn't as good as the first one, but it was a good number 2. But thank you all for joining in. Thank you, Matt, for taking this time to talk about all those wonderful movies with me. And look forward to next week.
Yeah, we'll see y'all next week. Thanks.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.